Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for Delgado Community College IT Workforce Tech Talk Thursday. And so my name is Kelvin Gibson, IT Director of Workforce. We also have on the call Ms. Erin Thomas, who is our Student Success Specialist. And today we have the honor of having Ms. Desiree Young. Ms. Young is the founder of VentureWalk and WinFish, an AI-enabled platform. And I'll turn over to Ms. Young.
Thank you so much, Kelvin. I am super excited and so grateful for this invitation to be a part of the Tech Made Easy and your Tech Talk Thursdays. This is a topic that, quite frankly, has been getting more traction than anything we've seen in the last several decades, right? And my excitement is really to boil that down to think about artificial intelligence for small businesses, specifically leveraging AI for your marketing and your sales. And so there is so much around this topic. I really believe, and much of this has been spoken already, is that this is kind of that next movement. I think about circa 93 with the idea of what the internet was. I think about circa 2002, three, thinking about Facebook and the initial social media posts and the social media pieces that were out there. And now artificial intelligence, especially generative AI. But before I do that, it's really important that you know who I am because obviously this is a topic that is so incredibly new. I always want to make it very clear out of integrity to be clear around who and what I'm not. First off, I'm not a self proclaimed artificial intelligence expert. Admittedly, I'm not certain there are very many. This is technology as a whole is very much too new, iterating too fast. And quite frankly, this is kind of one of those areas where you're going to need a lot more than the natural normal 10,000 hours to become an expert. Who and what I am, however, is a student of artificial intelligence, specifically for marketing, for sales, and for business, similarly to how I've been for social media, for email marketing, mobile marketing, and other parts of those types of tactics. I am not an official programmer and developer, although I do have a very new artificial intelligence enabled platform that I'll talk a little bit more about. Who and what I am, however, is a former mechanical engineer. If you ever stop becoming an engineer, but I specifically love the use of both low and no code tools, especially to design and develop functional platforms. In other words, how do you improve your own operations within your small businesses? So that's a little bit about who I am, but more specifically, I've worked with thousands of entrepreneurs, organizational leaders, as well as founders as both a consultant and a coach. Much of my work involves being a strategic advisor to over 2 dozen different accelerators, venture capital firms, and organizations. And as I mentioned, and Kelvin aptly mentioned as well, I am the founder and principal consultant for VentureWalk, which is an organization that is specifically primed to work with accelerators and the founders that come through them, and the creator of this new platform, as I mentioned, WinFish, which is specific to pitch training and pitch building. I'm super excited about it because it really does embody my specific body of work within the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And so, what I'm talking about today certainly comes from not just my own experience with artificial intelligence, but also with what I'm using in this season to work with business owners, as I mentioned, to really do a lot of few things. So, I want to talk a little bit about my agenda today and make certain that you are understanding just what it is you want to glean from today. I don't question you're probably getting a lot of information. But before I do that, I want to know a little bit about who I'm speaking to. So, I obviously have a little poll here. If you're watching live, you're able to be a part of this. If you're watching the replay, then tap it into the comments on YouTube. But I want to know kind of who are you? Are you a business owner, nonprofit leader, professional, student, other? And I want you to be able to kind of use this specific tool that I'm using called Poll Everywhere. You may use this with your phone or with your computer. You can join by text. I personally want to encourage you to join by web. Go to pollev.com/winfish and you will automatically see this first question. So I'm going to pause for a moment. You may absolutely use this poll that I'm using here or tap it into the chat or into the comments if you're watching the replay after. So, who do we have so I can really know who's really wanting to get a hold of the information I'm sharing today. So I'm going to press pause and kind of check the chat. Let's see, let's see. Sweet. So I see it in the chat. We've got A. Hi, Jalissa. How are you? Great to see you. Should have known. What I really love is all of the different founders and entrepreneurs I get an opportunity to meet and get to work with through some of the programs, the training from Goldman Sachs to Urban League to Propeller to GPV and several others, both in this Gulf Coast region, but really across the US. So it has been an incredible thing. Incredible thing. Awesome. So we've got a professional. So I like this. I like that there's definitely kind of a mix of people that are joining us today. And so much of what I want to do is make sure that I'm speaking to all of the aspects of being able to think about what you're going to do with artificial intelligence. There we go. It is working. We always like when technology works. So let's keep it moving here. And so the next piece here is really getting a good sense of what it is that AI really can do for you. So I want to kind of get into, hold on for a moment. So I want to get into a little bit of what it is that we're actually wanting to kind of get from today. So as I think a little bit about, I'm going to get back into the screen share. As I think a little bit about what it is we're really wanting to capture, there are so many options, but I want to be really specific. As I've already talked about, much of this is getting very clear on using AI for marketing and selling. So I want to talk a little bit about the how and when of AI, not so much just the if and why. I want to talk about what AI really is specifically, but again, I want to keep it really in the lane, in the zone of marketing and selling. And of course, get into some true use cases, specifically some three unique ways to use it. And although it's three ways, there's definitely different iterations of that and some real life case studies, both in my business and in the small businesses I've worked with. And of course, we cannot in this season talk about AI without also discussing some of the risks and some of the watchouts. So let's jump into this, but I need to give a fair warning. First off, 90, that is an important number. 90% of the information that I shared, that I'm going to share, may very well expire within the next 3 months. That's how fast this particular technology is really moving. And we already recognize that although OpenAI, that is ChatGPT's kind of baby, they obviously came out right around the ends of 2021, but we kind of understand that much of the information still is being changed and adjusted and moving. So we want to make sure that we're having the best information. So I want to make sure you're aware of that. So why AI for marketing? First and foremost, this specifically came from the Marketing AI Institute, and they actually did both a survey last year as well as this year, and they came out with some of the primary outcomes with over 900 different marketing professionals, agencies surveyed. They recognized that many of those people in the marketing arena were using AI and plan to use it to reduce time, to unlock greater value for marketing tech and their own tech stack, to generate a higher ROI for their campaigns, accelerating revenue growth. Isn't that the reason we're doing marketing and selling anyway? And then, of course, to get more actionable insights. Those are the top reasons that really range between the 50 all the way up to 70 or so percent. And so, in recognizing why AI for marketing, the other statistic was that 78% of marketers do believe that they'll be using AI intelligently to really automate more than 25% of their work within the next 5 years. Here's why that's important. As a business owner, Your work is obviously in delivering your product, delivering your service, but it is also to market that product or service. And so, whether you are doing your own marketing or hiring independent contractors, consultants, or agencies to do so, you and your business will be impacted. And so, much of this is your understanding what this really is about so you can make informed decisions. So, using artificial intelligence now versus later, that is the big question. It is not a matter of if you will, it's a matter of when. And so, I've come up with a couple of reasons why you would utilize this now. First and foremost, if your marketing and selling or even other business processes includes kind of repetitive tasks, definitely it's a thumbs up. If you personally lack adequate creative skills, I'm speaking of writing copy, shooting video, designing graphics, then this again is another incredible tool. If you recognize that you lack the time to learn those skills or to perform them, once again, this is the tool for you. And last but not least, if you recognize that you do not currently, maybe not even later, have the budget to actually be able to invest in the time or in the skills or in the talent to be able to do these particular marketing tasks, then again, using AI is now versus later. So let's really hop in and think about what AI is. First and foremost, it is not simply Chat GPT, which, as I mentioned, is really one of the initial prolific generative AI platforms. It is a part of OpenAI. That's kind of the primary brand. But there are other, of course, brands, that's the word I'm using, and other types of specific tools that kind of surround this entire AI world. Specifically, there's Claude, that's made by Anthropic. There's Bard, that's Google's kind of piece and brand of it. There's the newly reached and the newly launched Llama, that's by Meta, formerly Facebook. Microsoft has also, of course, gotten into this with their Microsoft Bing iteration. DALI is actually the ability to use artificial intelligence, not just for text, but in that case, for images. And DALI is actually a part of OpenAI. And when we start to think about marketing and selling in the marketing friendly tools, then it opens up an entirely new kind of slice from Jasper to Copy AI PRM, and what you see here, which is called Otter. Honestly, this list is easily exhaustive. And so my objective is really to show you much of what AI can do based on some of the very primary basics like ChatGPT and Claude, and really, really enable you to dig a bit deeper. So, of course, I'll be sharing some resources on where you can go next to get even more information as well as education on understanding how you can really use this. So there are six primary things that AI can do, and much of understanding that starts with these particular areas. First off, AI is one of the pieces that we're really familiar with is that it can generate, hence the term kind of generative AI, but it can also extract, meaning text, meaning information, obviously from the internet, although some of the dates of when it goes up to depends on the specific tool you're using, but it is very, very strong and great around extraction. It can also summarize. I mentioned the Otter tool, which is an incredible summarization tool as it both records, it also transcribes, and then can give summaries. And I'll be showing some examples around that. We also know that it can classify, and that's a really powerful tool. I won't be getting into it today because to me, it really gets into the advanced uses of AI, but understand that that is one of the things that it can do. It can, of course, answer questions. It can, of course, you can give it questions. It can spit back answers, both based upon what exists on the internet, as well as based upon information and data that you particularly feed it. And so part of understanding this and really getting into it is understanding that you really can do that. So we've talked a little bit about the six things it can do. And now I want to go a little bit deeper into understanding some very particular use cases. And of course, if there are any questions in relation to what I'm doing, I invite you to put them into the chat and I'll make certain to kind of pause so that we can get into that. So let's really kind of get into understanding, though, getting to use AI is really all about embracing your inner, what I like to call the why child. Perhaps you as a kid were the one that was always asking why. Somewhere in the growth and in the culture, perhaps, or in the environment you grew in, they maybe did not really want you to do so much of the questioning. Well, here is where that inner child gets to come back out to play, because AI and the results that you're able to get are only as good as the questions that you feed it. And those particular questions, the things that you ask, are called prompts. Now, I've got to be honest, prompting and this whole new field of prompt engineering is in and of itself a brand new area, and you can certainly go off on some really cool and interesting rabbit holes in prompting. But I want to go over just some overall thoughts and some things to keep in mind, especially when you are looking to do this initial conversation, because it is that, with an actual AI tool. First off, when it comes to prompts, which is in essence you asking questions to get some type of result, number one, you want to give it a persona or a role, perhaps even an audience. This is where, for us as small businesses, AI can shine, because you get to literally tell it who it is it should be acting as well as who it is that you may be speaking to. This now allows the artificial intelligence to regroup, to recognize where and how it may be pulling data sets. Number two, you want to make certain that your asking does give it a tone, and particularly perhaps even a writing style. So literally there are up to as many as 22 different tones and 19 different writing styles that exist within different AI tools. So it really does give you the opportunity to ask it, and to ask now for it to become more of this educator. Maybe it's more of a diplomat. Maybe it's going to write in a style that's emotional or poetic or very much direct or authoritative or business. And so this again allows you to ensure that the results you're getting really match and align with how it is you're wanting to communicate. Now, of course, because this is AI, there is also the user side and there's the developer side, which means that you can use this as a tool to plug into other tools you have. And so the other interesting part of using AI is that you can indeed train it on your own style and your own voice. There are particular tools that exist. Copy.ai, one of the kind of marketing friendly tools that I introduced, is one of those. But you can likewise even start to train a chat GPT or potentially even a Claude to kind of learn your voice. That kind of gets into what I'm kind of terming that intermediate or advanced type of AI, but understand that the ability and the capability is there. Number three, when it comes to prompting and asking for information to get a result, you ask for exactly what you want. AI can absolutely be this ideal partner for business and especially in marketing, but this is where you get to be very specific. And number four, you want to perhaps give it examples or the information that you want it to base its results on. And this again, to me, goes right back to you recognizing that working with AI and utilizing it is not about talking to it like it's a search engine, what we're all at this point really accustomed to, but really talking to it like it's an intern that's new to your company. Think about that. If you're working with a student that is now charged with doing your marketing, maybe they're going to develop a social media calendar or develop true posts and pull through your own editorial content. You want to make certain they understand everything there is to know about your company, about the audience you're speaking to, about where to get some of this information. That is the approach that you want to use with working with AI, especially for now. Now, of course, we recognize that AI is based upon learning and it is consistently learning. So the more we utilize it, the better it will become. The question is how and what type of business you're in and how are you looking to use it. That is what will tell you how well AI really feeds back information to you. Here's the piece. you have absolute 100% permission to over explain. And that is the key point. Recognize, is it smart? Yes, it is. Is it smarter than the natural human? Questionable. Here's the deal, it is just repeating and coming back with data that is already existing. And so if you now want particular types of data, you'd better be really specific in telling it what it is you want. So let's really jump in. Let's jump into some really specific examples and some use cases of using AI. So first off, there's no way we can talk about this without talking about the generative AI and its ability to generate. So I want to really talk a little bit about some of the ways that I've really seen this be pretty cool. I recognize your ability to see how it's being used is definitely going to get you into it. This is not about perfection. It is about tinkering and testing because admittedly, most of us, even those who maybe have a little bit more time in this tool, that is exactly what we're doing. And understand, as we as humans are testing, the tool itself is learning and iterating and changing. So as you can imagine, it's the ideal lab. So let's talk about AI from a generative or generating standpoint. So here are the things that you can generate when it comes to marketing and selling. Of course, it can generate content, things like blog posts, email, social posts. I'll talk a little bit about the risks of completely using generative AI completely and not having any of your own kind of submissions, but it is available and it is possible. You can also use it, which is one of my favorite use cases, use it for generating headlines, brainstorming subject lines when it comes to email, headlines for articles, or even for press releases. Using it for article research, if you really want to kind of know what's been written already about certain topics, certain areas of interest, this is ideal. If you as an entrepreneur are really wanting to use speeches and webinars and talks, then this is a great place to kind of use AI to develop speech points, to develop topics, even when it comes to brainstorming. So, how in the world is it able to do this? So, let's really jump in. So, as I mentioned, all of what I'll be showing you are real life use cases, meaning these are specific small businesses that I've worked with or my own business, and it was information that was truly used. And so, in most cases, and in a few cases, I have marked out either the name of the business or the name of the people, of course, to protect their identity. But this first case study is all about generating, but in this case, generating email campaign subjects. So I, in essence, was working with a chiropractor that was really now wanting to do a lot more in the pitch coaching arena. Specifically, she herself had been an award-winning champion in the arena of softball and now was utilizing her experience as a chiropractor to work with athletes and really ensure that they honestly stayed free from injury, but also had much more powerful games and the ability to be stronger athletes. So much of it was her ability to utilize and develop an email campaign so that when either students or their parents would find her on her particular platforms like IG, Facebook, they'd now be able to come into her own kind of orb, if you will, go from the IG or from social, get onto her email list, and now she could nurture them and communicate with them to hopefully get them to sign up for an evaluation. So what you see here above is my using OpenAI's ChatGPT to first off come up with my prompt. I've highlighted a couple of really key pieces, especially in the way that I've just discussed, how to ensure you are prompting or asking any of the AI tools to feed you information. I have absolutely, in this case, told ChatGPT to act as a baseball and softball pitch coach. So that is the role that I am asking it to play. I've basically been really specific to tell it to write marketing copy. And I've even given it kind of a style or a tone because I told it to write this marketing copy to make email marketing more engaging to get parents to schedule an evaluation. I wanted something very particular. I wanted email subject lines. So I asked it, what subject lines would you suggest for a sequence of 5 emails based upon some particular areas of focus. These were specific areas that my client does. These were the areas that really are prolific on our website. And so I wanted to make sure that ChatGPT was going to feed me information relative to those areas versus something that was just nebulous and overarching. So this is why we were able to get some decent kind of feedback that I knew we could use for my client that could be aligned because we fed it how we really wanted it to spit back. And admittedly, it did pretty well. As someone who definitely works in the whole copywriting arena, I can tell you that this did indeed save me several hours and a lot of thinking time. So as you can see here, it literally spit out 5 different emails. It spit out the specific subject line and even kind of gave it some subtext. The reason why that's so incredible is that now we could go back and align it, adjust it, amend it, do some editing relative to her voice, or even kind of go back to ChatGPT and ask it for a little bit more clarification. Okay, I'm gonna pause on that because this is incredible. I don't know how many of you are involved in having to write any of your own copy, be it for websites or social, but let's be honest, when it comes to just generating and thinking of the ideas, that's often where I've seen all of us, me included, get stuck. So let's allow artificial intelligence to really help us in coming up with these ideas. This is a powerful, powerful use case. So you see a little bit of what they've come up with. I want to show you what more it spit out from this very same prompt. After asking it, it not only gave me the 5 subject areas, it likewise gave me full copy for every single one of the 5 email campaigns. Now, in my early days of operating as a marketing consultant, it was not unusual for me to develop email campaigns for clients. But I got to tell you, it really started out in a process of assessing, really gaining their voice, ensuring we knew what their unique selling proposition was, oftentimes talking to their clients to get a good sense of what they loved about working with them, and then going back to the drawing board, staring at a blank screen, and starting to now hash out some really specific messages. Although I personally wouldn't always do a blind copy and paste from AI tools, it was very good to be able to see what it could create and for me to now use that and amend it so that I can align it to my client's voice to make sure there was not only integrity to how she would speak, but likewise that there was alignment with really how it is that she wanted to get across. In other words, not sounding too salesy, not sounding like a marketing person, but definitely sounding just a lot more authentic. AI still struggles with authenticity. Remember, it's not a human. It's just combing from data that was submitted by humans. And so there is still a need for the human touch. So my hugest recommendation is that when you're using AI to generate, do not verbatim take what it says. First off, and I'll talk more about this in the risks, there is the potential for the information that they spit out to just be wrong. And so in this case, I gave it information from which to pull from so that we had a better chance of it getting true and correct info. But secondly, remember, marketing is still about getting people to do business with other people. Even if it's business to business, even if it's business to government, definitely obviously B2C with business to consumer. And so the human touch is still going to be your unique voice, your unique perspective, and quite frankly, if and when you can, your own thought leadership involved. Having said all that, understand that this is still a powerful tool. And in this case, the ability to generate email content was pretty profound. Although, as I mentioned, much of what we really wound up using was adjusted and amended from what it initially provided. So that's the first use case study. Here's the second, still in the space of generating. I asked it to customize a press release. So I'd worked with a client. This was a new venture firm in the clean tech industry. And in essence, they had had an incredible run of their first pilot, the pilot of their accelerator. And one of their participants in the accelerator was a part of a national pitch contest, and that person won for their category. I was also super, super fortunate that they were able to utilize both my services as well as my WinFish process in supporting that person and that participant and getting ready for the pitch. We recognized there was a great deal of opportunity now to get some press out about this pitch contest and the pitch win. And so I pretty much was attempting to assess and really enable the pitch contest winner to make sure that he had some good copy first and foremost to provide. And then, of course, to round back and do the same for the client, recognizing that everyone would get shine in this one press release. So I gave a really simple prompt here. Admittedly, this was not very deep. I just said, give me a press release template for a pitch contest win. Now, I know what you're thinking. Can't you just kind of go into Google and put the same thing in? You absolutely can. In most cases, what you can do is say, give me a press release template. But the ability now to literally say specifically what type of press release this is, I want you to really note some of the output to recognize just how unique this truly is. And I've highlighted some of that. It obviously is giving me a specific template, but this template goes into some specifics that I would not get in the average press release template. For example, it is, of course, asking for a quote, but it's asking for a quote around the winner, their product, and the significance of winning the contest. So this literally is giving me now prompts to be able to pull through and fully develop a really quality press release. Secondly, it asks and gives me some direction around a winner's quote about winning the contest. And of course, making sure that all of the important parts of a press release are included. It also prompts me to include relevant social media handles and website links for the winner, as well as for the organization that sponsored it. That is pretty incredible. If you have ever tried to develop a press release, or let's look at on the other side, worked with a person in the PR industry or an agency, you recognize that the cost to do such is pretty significant. And so, even though I'm never going to advocate not working with professionals in the marketing arena, in the PR arena, in the sales arena, what I am going to say is this now can become a collaborative type of effort. And now it doesn't just potentially reduce the amount of time, but likewise can reduce the amount of cost. As an aside, as you're thinking of how you're looking to grow and how you're really looking to grow using marketing and, of course, using selling, if and when it makes sense to hire professionals, you must ensure that AI is being entered into the conversation. Trust me when I tell you that agencies are already on it and in it. So it just makes sense to acknowledge the elephant in the room and understand how they're going to be utilizing this tool and how they're going to ensure that it works for you. That's just a little tip as you think about the later and parts and types of investment you're looking to make in your company. So this is the other piece around generating the idea of being able to generate ad copy. So admittedly, I knew that this webinar was coming up. I wanted to make sure to submit to Delgado a really quality description. So I wanted to kind of develop my own kind of description of what this webinar would be, but I wanted to get a sense of what ChatGPT would spit back at me, right? So I gave it again some unique prompts. I told Chat, I said, you're a marketing copywriter. Rewrite this paragraph. This is my description to encourage signups for the class. And so I did just that. I literally took the copy that I had written and I told it to do just that. I ensured that I wanted it also written in plain in English language. And as you can see, it gave me back some really unique information, and not just information. What is interesting about ChatGPT is not just the copy or the information it gives, but also the formatting of how it does such. You'll note kind of its use of emojis. You'll note kind of its use of separating. And this, quite frankly, from my own training with copywriting, really does make it more scannable, which makes it much more open and hopefully consumable for your watchers, listeners, and readers. So as you can see, they did a decent job. For my taste, it was a little too markety, my word. But of course, I told it. I said, you're a marketing copywriter. So this is ChatGPT's kind of definition of that. it is incredibly marketing sales heavy. But again, I think that there were some pieces that I thought to myself, I want to keep playing with how I ask. And admittedly, even though it gives you information, you can come back and kind of get it to tone it down or to adjust. And so all of this, again, is just to show and to see that it can generate various types of marketing material and collateral. I'm just talking about text. I mentioned about DALL-E, which is OpenAI's image AI tool. That actually gives you the opportunity to now get pictures and images and even video. And so this is not just relegated to text and the idea of copy, but also to images and the visuals. So this is some interesting stuff. I'm going to press pause before I go into some of the other ways that AI can be used, but I want to just check in and see if there are any questions that exist. Oh, I love this question. So Michelle is asking, what's the cost? This is a great question because currently most of the tools have incredible free versions. Chat GPT, you can still do a really good deal with the free version. There are, of course, like every free version of SaaS software as a service, such that in this case, you have a limit as far as the actual characters up to 4,000. That's about 500 words. However, Claude on the other end, their free version actually gives you access to almost 10 to 15 times that. And again, that's on the free version side. So there's a great deal that you can do on the free versions. But even if you then go into paid versions, the average AI tool is starting at between $10 and $20 per month as far as a subscription. That is pennies compared to obviously the type of work and the type of results you can get back. Recognize again that your results, as I mentioned earlier, are only as good as your inputs. But again, when you think about what you're really investing, money it's not going to be as much. It is going to take a little bit more time, but think about the time that you are saving. Think about the time you're saving. Oh, hi, Michelle. I see your hand is raised. Come through.
Yeah, I have a question for you. So I'm a published author and a PR person. And so the questions that we are struggling with when it comes to GPT is the fact that first, they're finding that there are instances where the computers are actually taking work from other, copyright work and reusing it. That's one thing.
Yeah.
Secondly, how do you protect yourself from that? If you're using the platform, and then you find that it's just plagiarizing information from other writers. Secondly, is that PR is an engagement tool. Okay, it's about engaging with your audience. Now, this is a component of that and can help tremendously, but it does not, in my opinion, how do we deal with the ethics of it in some ways, but also how do we deal with the fact that it's not a human? It can't actually engage. It can assist.
No,
So
that's correct.
Just those two things I was just wondering about.
Oh, love these questions, Michelle. So to your point, you're correct. The whole plagiarism piece of it is obviously a huge situation. My own attorney, her name is Nicole Gaither. She's with Sage House Legal, incredible firm. This is her wheelhouse, literally. And so a lot of the concerns and challenges are, you're correct, whereas you don't recognize or know where the AI tool is scraping information. And so what it is feeding to you may very well be copyrighted information, specific information that's relative to others. Now, in the space of the authorship, I know you mentioned two sides of it. So when I mentioned about what information you get, and I'm going to get into this definitely around the risks and the watch outs, you must validate and verify the information consistently, which is why much of the generative sides, I encourage people to feed it your information, and now you're utilizing it in that way. That's one part of it. The other piece of it, how do we get into protection? That is the $1 billion question right now. I mentioned Nicole, and much of her work is getting much of these precedents set right now. Whereas, what does that mean? And so some of what is coming out is really understanding that you personally cannot copyright fully 100% generative AI information and contents because you don't know who it really belongs to. So on that end, recognize for those that are looking to use Gen AI to really write books and author things, huge watch out because you don't necessarily own that content. On the side of protection, that's really still, as I mentioned, the question. It's where we're really looking to see where things are going to fly. And obviously, we have seen country by country come up with its own policies. There is, of course, a policy here for the US, but it's honestly very, very nebulous. It's not very specific. And so that has led many businesses to now go with utilizing AI tools where there now is more so of a private kind of tool set. What that means is that they're now getting into AI where it is not able to comb the internet, and the information that they're sharing can now be private, and it also does not go back out. One of the things that AI will naturally kind of talk to you about, especially ChatGPT, Claude as well, is recognizing that anything you input into that system is not necessarily going to be held privately, meaning do not put information in there that is of high confidence or confidential. You want to make sure that you can only put out stuff that you're okay being out there. So from your question around protection, you don't want to input information that's confidential or that you do not want shared with the world. We're still learning about how to hedge protection. And I think part of this is, for now, we want to utilize it in ways that obviously do not get us in trouble with either using someone else's content or having our own content pulled into the matrix. I say that, but on the flip side, by the mere fact of having a blog post on the internet makes it subject to being pulled into ChatGPT because it literally is combing the internet. So it's kind of a convoluted array of things. Now, your second question, which was about those that are in PR and marketing, I agree 100%. This cannot, I don't believe it will take the full place of the human touch. Now, I say that, it's going to sound like I'm contradicting myself. One of the other incredible use cases for AI is the creation of chatbots. And we've all seen this, right? You go to a website, it asks, how are you? How can I help you? You think you're speaking with an actual human, but really, in many, many cases, that is a chatbot that has been trained on the information that company is actually based maybe on the service they're selling, on the product they're selling. Now, I talked a little bit about marketing friendly environments and marketing friendly tools. Jasper AI, for example, happens to be one of those tools where you now are not just allowing ChatGPT or any AI tool to fully be your chatbot, but now it is both the human touch and the AI touch. And they're very, very clear around integrating the two, because to your point, they're absolutely, and I'm going to advocate for this from this point forward. We are not looking for AI to take our place. We are looking for AI to assist. And I know there's a lot of discussion around this when we think about jobs and in the workforce. There are repetitive tasks that it will be able to do, but the human touch and the relational aspect that's human to human, which is business, which is culture, which is life, is not what AI will ever be able to do. And there'll be a lot of responsibility now for those of us that are in this industry, right, of marketing and PR, to reinforce our own unique selling propositions around ensuring that our clients are going to have that and that they too will not believe that AI can do our jobs. So we got a little work to do. We definitely do. But I love this question. Thank you so much. And if there are other questions that are coming up, I would definitely welcome hearing it. Thank you, Jalissa. You mentioned having paid $39.99. I'm curious, and that is for which specific tool? I'm guessing it's ChatGPT. Much of what I mentioned is starting points of pricing, definitely not ending points. That $10 to $20 is across all of the different tools and definitely a starting point. So I'd love to hear a little bit about, maybe if you dump into the chat, what your specific payment is for and what it is, what iteration of which specific tool that is for.
So it is the same one that you put on there, but it's called Keyboard. So it's like inside of my keyboard. So I was using the free version, but I had to copy and paste. So having the fact that I can just send a text, press grammar check or press tone or whatever, I was like, it was $39.99 for like, I think lifetime.
That's really great. Yeah, that's really great. Love the lifetime deals. What we're seeing now, of course, are so many, because these are still open platforms, right? Meaning there's usually this open API. So that means developers can use the technology in the back end to feed into their own kind of setups and their own software. And now they're able to make iterations of other things that are doing even more and beyond, really to just functionalize the workforce or the workflow of kind of those applications. So it means, in essence, they're able to allow it to now do things like, wow, it's now in your keyboard and it's connecting to Grammarly. And so you're not having to go from tool to tool. It is literally creating this workflow for you so that it's combining the connection of all of those tools while using AI as the thread. This is the interesting piece of this, especially from a developer programmer perspective. And as a business owner, admittedly, some of this is thinking about what is it that's happening. That's why I asked about what are repetitive tasks, so that you can now see what is going to be the ideal tool for me, because there are so many different tools that exist, so many different tools. So I want to get into this next use case. I've got one more after this, and that is the idea of the rewriting. So generating is cool, but rewriting is really even stronger. And if I can be honest, when I hear experts, the real experts, really talk about AI and what it is strong with, then rewriting is definitely one of those. And I can imagine, again, even if we're getting some of our thoughts out of our heads into kind of onto the screen, there is this sense of, how do I get it from point A to point B? And this, again, is this assisting that it can do. So I want to show you a few examples of where and how that's happened. So in this case, this was a lot of prepping, both for a next level proposal for a client, as well as ensuring that we were updating all of their social media profiles. We recognized we had a really decent working copy of who they are, kind of this bio for the company. And yet we recognized we needed a smaller version of such, right? So this was kind of the 150 word version. We knew we needed a 50-word version. So literally, I utilized, in this case, again, ChatGPT to reduce this to 50 words. And I fed it the particular information so that it could spit it back out to me. So once again, this is time-saving types of mechanisms. You can see it definitely reduced it, and yet it did still maintain the integrity of the initial copy. I could have asked this to do it several different times with different tones or different writing styles and gotten different iterations of the same base original. But as you can see, the rewriting is another really powerful way of utilizing it. So those are two use cases. Here is another one, summarizing. Admittedly, summarizing to me is one of the most powerful ways to utilize this, not just from a time saving, not just from a cost saving, but even in just as an operational tool about having that next level, just like Michelle mentioned about the human touch. This is kind of how I'm able to reduce my time and literally strengthen my own brain, my own memory by utilizing AI when I'm dealing with a lot of data, a lot of information. Much of my work, for example, is involved around conversations. And often I'm hearing, I want to be very fully present during these meetings, during these conversations, during trainings, but I also want to debrief what's happened. Well, it's difficult to debrief when you're in it. And if you want to be fully present, you just need a summary of what's happened. Now, back in the day, you had another person there, right? They're physically taking notes. But now we've got so many tools that we can kind of piece together to do the same thing till it is really profound. So I want to show you a few use cases around the summarizing, and then I'm going to take another pause to see just where we are, because I know we're getting close to our time. So if, and I'm presuming the if is a yes, you are involved in sales meetings, whether they are in person or online, the ability to summarize not just what was said as far as transcribing it, but summarizing it from a sense of the high points is incredible and mind-blowing. Here, I utilize one of the tools that I mentioned earlier called Otter AI, to literally be a part of a sales conversation, where, as you can see, it was both recording from an audio perspective what this conversation was, transcribing it, as you can see here, and as you can see on the right, it also was creating a summary, and I'm able to go to the place of the conversation to know where that specific summary point came from. I cannot tell you how strong and how helpful this can be. This is really the next level when you think about customer relationship management tools. If you, for example, have a database of your customers, you now get to take this file, attach it to the profile of the person, and before your next conversation, you can review it a few moments before. You don't have to listen to the full 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes of conversation. You can now just review the actual summary. And now you're able to be present again. You're able to be reminded. You have the recall, and now you've also got all of this that's attached to this person that allows you to understand from every conversation what's happened and an ability to pull that through. Again, that is the power of this tool. Let me show you by far my favorite way to use this tool, one that I am personally using once again. It is kind of summarizing, but it's also this idea of extracting information. And again, it's extracting from the data sets information and text that I have fed it. So I want to show you. Again, in my practice, every conversation I have or every program I'm a part of, I am also getting reviews and testimonials. So what you see here is one piece from the pitch program that I have run with accelerators, and very soon in the new year, we'll be running independently to support founders in developing their best elevator, investment if needed, and or sales pitch. So obviously, having had hundreds of business owners come through my specific pitch process, I was able to collect several reviews, which was great to have all these testimonials. But I then needed to know what to do with it. Obviously, I can post them literally onto LinkedIn, onto IG, where have you. But what I did was I asked, in this case, not ChatGPT, I actually went over to Claude and asked it, you are going to act as a social media manager for me, a business consultant. I'm telling it its role. I'm telling it that it is proficient at writing what I'm calling thought leadership copy to gain authority in the small business space. And now I'm going to tell it exactly what to do. I'm saying its first task is to examine a series of customer reviews. That's what I'm feeding it. And to use that copy to write posts for LinkedIn based upon what I, Desiree, and my company VentureWalk can do to help people pitch and present. Yes, we get to be that specific. We get to tell it because it can handle it. Admittedly, all humans cannot handle this level of detail, but the great thing is that AI and computers can. So here is what's interesting. And obviously what you see here is a copy paste of my database of a couple of reviews. So I want to show you what it spit back out. So it literally gave me 3 potential LinkedIn posts based on those customer reviews. And it's quite interesting, I thought it was decent. I would want to play around with it, right? With some tone and some style. But, I had been using ChatGPT for most of the time and really wanted to kind of get into Claude because, again, I really, in this season, am wanting to be AI tool agnostic. I just want to be able to support founders and entrepreneurs and knowing what tools will do what for them. And admittedly, I was impressed. As you can see, it gave me 3 succinct kind of LinkedIn posts. But again, the curiosity got to the best of me, right? So I wanted to kind of feed the same information to ChatGPT and see what it came up with, and then really kind of get its spit out and its results. What I like, of course, about ChatGPT, like I mentioned, it's not just about information, but it's also about format. Love that it gives emojis. That's really powerful, especially when we think of social. And as you can see, it likewise kind of gave a different iteration. And admittedly, I would go back and probably use a little bit of both. Different styles are coming through, and I would probably morph them a little bit and just align them to my voice a little bit more, or really continue to support training ChatGPT to do so. All right, so I've talked about a whole lot of all of the 6 things it can do: generate, extract, summarize, rewrite, classify, and kind of do the Q&A with all of it. And all of this is really about thinking about what are the risks, what are the limits, what are the watch outs. So much of this is about the character and the date limits. I talked a little bit about ChatGPT. Obviously, it did not come onto the scene until 2022, but the information currently is still only up to September of 2021. And still, this idea of hallucination, validating responses is critical. You cannot trust this data always. You want to verify and validate. And of course, if you are using AI to generate blog posts, web copy, etc., make sure that you are verifying it using Google's what is called EEAT guidelines. I won't go into the details, but it is how Google is combing content and how it is now rating your content. It's not that it's against AI generated content, but it definitely wants to ensure that the content is decent and good and that it's not 100% of such. And we're still learning about what Google deems as okay versus not. So you want to get familiar with that. And last but not least, you want to lean on AI for its strengths, which is rewriting, which is extracting, not just generative. And so here are some sources where you may absolutely be able to learn more. And so I encourage you definitely to check that out. So I'm going to press pause and really check in to see if there are any questions. Oh, this is a great question, Michelle. Is Grammarly a form of ChatGPT? So Grammarly, as we all know, was around before ChatGPT was there. What they have done is they have now pulled in the use of AI within it. And we see that often. We've seen that with several different tools that were already around that have either utilized OpenAI's API to pull ChatGPT in, or they have literally used other types of AI tools to develop their own kind of language model to really ensure that it is AI enabled. So it's not a form of ChatGPT. It is a tool that, again, has AI enabled. It is AI assisted within it. And so that's really becoming a thing and a theme in the season to really ensure that these existing software tools are now really also being able to be powered up with the use of AI as a whole. All right, so I would be remiss if I did not give you the opportunity to learn more. GoWinFish.com is the official place right now where I love to hear from you. It's a way to learn more about the platform I alluded to, but also just to understand more about AI. I certainly want to do more educating around this and welcome being in touch with you. And now I will turn it over to Mr. Kelvin so that he can tell you about the other incredible things that Delgado has on tap.
Thank you very much, Desiree. Again, we appreciate the nuggets that you gave us on AI and also AI for marketing. Anyone have any last questions for Desiree? All right. And also on the call, we have with us Miss Erin Thomas. And Erin, if you don't mind sharing the other classes and upcoming classes we have coming up with Delgado Community College.
Thank you, Calvin. As Calvin said, I'm Erin Thomas. I am the Student Success Specialist at Delgado in the Workforce IT classes. We have 4 upcoming classes this fall. We have our IT Fundamentals, which is a 6-week course, our Scrum Master course beginning October 2nd, our IT Cybersecurity course beginning October 9th, and our AWS course beginning October 9th as well. For all of our classes, they're $3.99. 100% online Monday through Thursday, 6 to 9:30 p.m. But for right now, we're running a special for our AWS class. We're doing a fall special for $99. And for the cost of the $99 or the $3.99, depending on which course you take, the voucher is included for all of those classes. So if you want any additional information on the courses, please visit our website, which I will put in the chat. And I will also put my email address if you have any questions. And I will turn it back over to Calvin.
Thank you very much, Aaron, for that information. And again, if you have any questions, and you can reach out to us at Delgado Community College. We can get you in contact with Ms. Desiree Young if you have any questions, further questions regarding information that she shared. Again, thank you everyone for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you on our future calls. Thank you very much.